So I'm going to read to you a little scene from The Wanderer Reborn. This is my second book and it's from the point of view of Awan, which is Cain's sister, and it is after the scene where Cain has killed Abel. So we're a few years after that now. I noticed a change in my mother and father around that time. They seemed happier together again and more affectionate. At first I attributed it to their granddaughter, until I noticed Ima expanding around her waist. I caught her on her own one morning near the well and questioned her. Yes, Awan, you are correct. I am expecting a child again. She smiled tentatively as she dipped dishes into a pot of water. How are you feeling about that? I asked, remembering her conversation with Ava some time ago, the one I shouldn't have overheard. I am well, she said, interpreting my question as being about her health. And is your heart? I continued, grabbing a linen cloth to dry. Her eyebrows drew together and then she smiled again, more openly this time. You've always been perceptive. I shouldn't be surprised. I was scared at first, scared to have another child after Havel died, yet having Dorit around has made me long for one again. Seeing Abigail nursing her kindled a longing in my breast. I believe the time is right. She laid a hand on mine. Your dear brother can never be replaced, Awan. You must not think I mean to do that. Don't worry, Ima. I would never assume you meant to replace Havel. I know how irreplaceable he is in my heart. I would love to welcome another brother or sister into the world. Putting down the bowl I held, I gave her a firm hug and kissed her cheek. I'm glad you know, she said. Now I feel I can tell everyone else. I was most afraid that you would be angry with me. I feel my part in neglecting you after Havel's death. You spent that time looking after me, when it should have been the other way round. Don't blame yourself, Ima, for I lay no blame on your shoulders. We all had to cope in our own way and find a journey through the grief. She squeezed me again. I suddenly had a nagging feeling inside my chest, something that I needed to get off it. Ima, I need to tell you something. I heard you and Abba having a private conversation some time ago, the night I was chased by the sheep. She looked at me, puzzled, before submerging another bowl. I can't think what that would have been about. You were talking about a need for a hut of your own and not wanting another child, and then you spoke about Chaim and me and our relationship. Realization dawned in my mother's eyes. Ah, I remember. Well, that explains why you knew to ask me about the baby. My cheeks warmed. I'm sorry. I should have told you before. I shouldn't have kept it from you all this time that I was there. Awan, no harm has been done. You're an adult now. I'm sure you can manage what you heard. It nearly led to problems with Chaim. No, that was my doing, not yours. I told your father I'd seen you two together. I truly thought that you had feelings for each other, and I desperately want you to be happy, sweet one. I know how lonely you've been. I suppose that too stemmed from guilt about neglecting you. Regardless, I should have checked with you first. Thank Yahweh, it all turned out all right in the end. Yes, it did. A great weight lifted from my shoulders that I hadn't realised I'd been carrying. I thought the conversation was over, but Ima continued. Unless you are still sad and just being brave, Awan, how is your heart? The question set me back and I found myself drying something twice. I confess I do miss my brothers even after all this time. When Havel died, it ripped me in two. I didn't know how to live without him. He'd always been there, you know? Ima nodded. I remember well feeling the two of you kicking about in my womb together. It felt like I was carrying a couple of jackals. I smiled. Even when we were apart, I still felt Havel's presence in my life. But the day I found him in the field, I knew he was gone. I knew his soul had departed, and I couldn't go with him. It felt like I was starting life all over again, yet I didn't know where to start, and I wasn't even sure that I wanted to. My mother's eyes roamed to the distant hills. I have slowly learnt to live again, I said. Chaim helped me so much. I suppose that's why you noticed a connection between us. Mostly, though, Yahweh helped me. I wasn't sure how to talk to him with Havel gone. Havel had always taken the lead, known what to pray and what to do. I was content living in his shadow, for indeed it was no shadow at all, but felt like permanent daylight. She turned to me and I caught a glimpse of something else. Longing? It took time to build my own connection with Yahweh, I continued. I spent a while feeling like I was wandering, but Yahweh kept me safe, and he came to me when I eventually asked him to. He has been my companion since then. Although I may never marry, at least I will have Yahweh. I'm content. A smile tugged at one side of Emma's mouth. I'm glad for that. And what about Cain? What of him? I asked with trepidation. You said that you missed your brothers. You've only mentioned Havel. Oh, you heard that. I stared at the cloth in my hand. I don't know if I should speak about it. Emma sighed and dried her hands on her tunic. I fear that's also my fault. I haven't spoken to you of my feelings for Cain since that day. I couldn't process my feelings about what happened, so I tried to forget him. It was easier than coming to terms with what he did, but it didn't work. The day your father had his outburst, it all hit me. Denying Cain's actions and pretending he hadn't left had harmed us all. Tears prickled at my eyes, perhaps in relief she'd finally admitted it, perhaps something else. Emma continued. While you were away from the hut that afternoon, your father and I grieved together for Cain and wept for his sin. It was still raw when you returned, but things have grown easier since. I now feel able to talk about him. So please, speak. I took a deep breath. I loved him, Emma. I was aware of his flaws, which sometimes frightened me, but I still loved him. Although you all thought I would marry Havel, if I'd been forced to choose between them back then, I believe I would have chosen Cain. For it was Cain that consumed my thoughts and my dreams, even while Havel was by my side. I held back from him because I wasn't sure whether he loved Yahweh. I don't know whether that was wise or foolish, given how it turned out. Emma couldn't hide the surprise on her features, though she was trying to, so I pressed on. Like you, I didn't know how to process what Cain did. I needed to grieve for him, but I didn't know how. And I was so angry. I still swing from being furious with him to feeling despair at my heart's constant longing. Although time has settled the rawness of my emotions, no matter how much I pray against it, I am bitter he took my future away. Even so, I miss him still. As do I, Awan, Emma said. I had 18 summers with Cain before the rest of you were born. I loved him ferociously and would have defended him to the death. Yet in latter years, he never seemed to see that. He was always so far from us, as if some world existed in his mind that we weren't part of. I have spent some time considering this. I now believe we all have struggles that we need to lay down before Yahweh. Your father, as you know, likes to hold on to shame and fails to lay it down, even when he has been forgiven. I am discontented, always thirsty for something more to fill my life when I should find my satisfaction in Yahweh. I seek too much purpose in serving my children rather than my Elohim. Cain craved being needed and loved, as I do. Yet he sought recognition and praise for what he did, and when he didn't get what he thought he deserved, he allowed resentment to consume goodness. Pride is a terrible thing. Even Havel struggled with it. Indignation tugged at my heart. Havel wasn't proud. He wasn't perfect, Awan. You told your father Havel knew his sin and was humble before Yahweh. You were correct. You see, Havel was disposed to sin just like the rest of us. You may not remember much of his childhood, but he was by far my most willful child. He began to change the day he nearly lost his life. When Cain rescued him on the cliff face, he realized his lowly position before Elohim and repented, but he still struggled. After he began leading worship, he came to me and asked me to pray with him. We'd regularly pray for Yahweh to protect him from possessiveness and pride. I knew about the cliff face, I said, but I never knew that. I thought I'd known everything about him. We can never know everything about somebody. But love accepts, compromises, and endures, even through the surprises and the imperfections. Love is not proud. It is not self-seeking. Love forgives and moves forward. This is the love Yahweh models for us, is it not? You are naturally compassionate, Awan, but as you have confessed, anger still grips your heart. Don't fall into the same trap Cain did, my love. Don't let that anger fester, even if it's justified. try to open your heart some more and lay it down before Yahweh. So that was a scene from The Wanderer Reborn.